Hi, everybody. Kevin Barheit here. Thanks for tuning in. I just got done a couple of hours ago doing a podcast. I was the interviewee, and Win Charles from Ask Win podcast was the interviewer. And I want to first say, shout out, thank you so much, Win and Danielle. Mostly what we talked about was her podcast and my YouTube channel and some of the activities that we're both going through, but I wanted to focus on something that we veered off topic a bit, and I wanted to bring it up here today. Win's father recently died, and it was a real tragedy in her life and a real struggle. And that's something that the two of us have in common. About 10 years ago, next month in October, my dad died. And this is the time of the year when he got really, really sick. So this is the time of the year when I really have those recurring feelings that I had. They're not as strong as they were 10 years or even 5 years or 4 or 3 or 2 or even 1 year ago. But it still makes me sad and it still hurts, and today was a rough day. But talking with Win, it made me think of a few different things, and I wanted to focus on those here. There's a lot of things you know about me. You know that I was an addict and alcoholic in recovery. You know that I suffered child sexual abuse, and you know that I've recovered from that. You also know that I was adopted and abandoned, and I've dealt with those issues. One thing you don't know about Win, and I've told you that she was my interviewer today, and she's wonderful. Win has cerebral palsy, and it's one of the things that defines her or has defined her in her life. But I wanted to talk briefly about that because one of the things I noticed today, and I thought about it all the way driving home today, was that doesn't define us every minute of every day. I don't know enough about Win's life to really tell you much about how she struggled and what her life has been like, but I know about mine. And I know for me, when I first got clean and sober and started to recover from addiction and alcoholism, that defined me. And even before that recovery defined me, the past defined me. One of the things that changed over the period of time is how much that stayed in the forefront of who I am. And that's one of the things I noticed today when I was talking to Win. Neither one of us focused on who we used to be. We didn't even focus on the recovery aspect. We focused on who we are today and who we're trying to be for tomorrow. That's been really important. As I said, focusing on the recovery aspect was really, really a key. As I started to recover, as I worked through the alcoholism, the addiction, and became a recovering addict and a recovering alcoholic, that really started to define me. And that was great because it defined me more than my past did. But here's one of the things that I noticed. As I started to define myself as a recovering person, the past started to fade a bit. It started not to be the forefront of who I presented myself as. I didn't see everyone and meet everyone and approach every situation as an addict or an alcoholic. But in the same way that my past became the backdrop, now my recovery has become the backdrop. And what it really became is I've built a foundation. That foundation that I have, and I'm assuming that foundation that Win has, is what we stand upon. It's not the past that defines us. It's not even the recovery that we've worked so hard through and toward that defines us. It's the foundation that we've built by actively pursuing that recovery. And now that that foundation is strong, and now that we know how to keep that foundation in place, we can now build who we are as individuals. And that includes our past, but the past is the backdrop. That includes the recovery process. But the recovery process also becomes the backdrop and the whole foundation of what we want to build ourselves to be. I've had that experience of having that foundation in place and having it shaken right to its core. When I had about 12 years in recovery, I really thought I had this down. My life had changed so much. I had become a different person, and I got too busy for this. And I got too busy for the recovery process. And we call that, in recovery parlance, a dry drunk. It took 4 years to drive through that dry drunk. And when I came out on the other side of it, that dry drunk almost killed me. That dry drunk almost drove me to suicide. It drove me to a broken heart and a broken soul and a broken body and a broken mind. You see, it's not that the past, it's not that my past is not a part of who I am. It is. It's just not the face that I give to the world. It's not that my recovery and all the years that I've put together isn't a part of who I am. All this makes up who I am. Just like the cerebral palsy is a part of who Win is and makes up who she is. but it's not the face that we present to the world every minute. It's this foundation that I put together by struggling through, by understanding who I am, what my past is about, and what recovery means to me. The piece that really almost broke me was that dry drunk. But when I came through that dry drunk, I really understood. I really realized that this was a foundation that I was responsible for, and that foundation now is key. That's the foundation that I stand on when I present myself here to you, present myself to my wife, to my children, to my mother, to my family. I went through a stage of a dry drunk, and when I came through that, I knew there were 5 things that had to be completely and literally non-negotiable. I go to meetings on a regular basis. I have a sponsor. I work the steps with that sponsor. I do service, and I have a relationship with a power greater than myself. Those are the 5 things that are non-negotiables. Those are the foundation of my sobriety. Those are the foundation of my recovery. I appreciate your time today, Win. I thank you so much for having me. I thank you all for being here today. I promise there will be 5 videos coming up on the 5 pillars that I just described. Subscribe, leave comments, share this, like, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for taking the time. Take care.